So
That
I'm
makes sense.
starting it now. Hopefully it'll go live.
Oh, how exciting.
Looks
This
like it
is exciting.
is.
As you're doing it, I'm on a different device here and uh, turning on YouTube, and I'm going to look up. I don't think I'm signed in on here. Low brass U, like in Monsters University.
Right, for copyright reasons.
There it is. It wants me to subscribe because I'm not signed in, but I'm guessing it'll show that you're live even if I'm not a subscriber. Maybe
It
if I
should.
go to your.
Yeah, it says for watching now. It seems.
There it is. I see it. I see it.
Yep. Well,
Okay, excellent. Yeah.
and
All right.
you should be able to see the chat too, right? Or am I crazy about that?
Uh, I see the chat.
Okay.
Yep. That's why I brought it up. So maybe I could see the chat
Cool.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But awesome. So to the four people here today, or at least so far, we've got a special guest on this. It was the fifth live stream I think that I've been consistent on this year. So every Wednesday night we've got this live stream, and we've got Mr. Tuba Dylan. So Dylan King he's pretty much in my eyes he's the original tuba YouTuber. So. I think I looked on your channel as 14 years ago was the first video. Is that right? Something like that.
Cool. It doesn't seem like that long.
Yeah. So maybe to the five people now that we've got on here, do you want to maybe tell a little bit about yourself? And maybe we'll go field some questions or talk about some other things from there.
Well, one of the secrets that I reveal in my live stream is that, especially for tuba videos, if there happen to be, you're seeing 5, 6 ticking up, and I tell my kids that that actually represents millions of viewers.
Ah,
So I
that's
just want to
news
say
to me.
that's news to you. Okay, well, I just want to let you know because it's your station and it's up to 6 million, which is absolutely fantastic
It's a lot
for
of millions.
only a few minutes in. That's
Right.
really great. Yeah. Yeah. No, I put that first video I put on YouTube whenever it was 2007 or maybe or six, something like that, was the Star Spangled Banner. And incidentally, that turned out to be one of the highest tuba viewed videos because somebody stole it and used it for a Donald Trump cartoon or Donald Trump sort of interview meme video. I don't know what you'd call it.
Right.
Parody
It
video.
had a resurgence.
It did. It did. And I mean, that kind of thing has happened several times. I don't know how either YouTube finds out about it. One time years ago, I was listening to the Howard Stern show, and he was interviewing. He had a thing where he was interviewing one of his guest people, a guy named Beetlejuice. And one of the question was, we're going to play an instrument, and you tell us what it is, and that was, if he did, he'd win a prize or money or something.
Gotcha.
And he played my battle hymn of the Republic, I think it was, or one of my YouTube videos. I forgot what it was, but I was listening live, and he played it. I thought that was pretty far out. That was when I thought, wow, that's the power of YouTube. It got me on the Howard Stern show.
I mean,
without having to call in.
That's something to put on your resume for sure.
Yeah, I guess.
Not many can.
Maybe.
You're probably the only tubist that could say that.
Yeah, maybe. I've had some far out stuff happen in my life. I'm probably the only tubist to stand next to John Williams twice, but not meet him, which was weird, and my fault because I was at that time just something about him that just terrified me. I didn't know how to talk to him. And I was shy and nervous, but not usually. I'm not usually a shy person. I'm not usually a shy person, but there was something about him that blew me away when I met him 2 different times, but I didn't really meet him. So that's one story.
Yeah.
I wish I had that on YouTube when that actually happened. That would be funny. Just me kind of standing there, kind of like nudging towards him, like, should I just strike up? Should I tell him about the tuba concerto? And when I think, that would be a good way to get in to talk to him. And anyway, I didn't do it because I was a fool.
Yeah, I mean, being starstruck is definitely real, especially when it's John Williams of all people.
It is real.
I've not had the pleasure, but.
Oh yeah, well, I didn't used to be very starstruck, but that was the one time And the one thing I regret, and I'll tell my tuba friends because they all know John Williams. So anyway, that's a silly story. But yeah, I was on YouTube in the beginning of YouTube, at least in the early days that people were just, hey, I've got a video camera and I can film something. What can I do? Oh, well, I can play something on the tuba. All right, well, I'm going to do that just to see what happens because when I type in tuba, I don't really see much.
Right. Yeah. There was basically nothing. I remember. I think Oystein Bodsvik had a couple of videos out at that time or around that time, but really, it wasn't much of anything. That scene didn't really exist.
A weird thing about the Super Mario video that has come and gone and had its day, but the Super Mario video was in, I'm going to say it was out in 2000. You could just look it up. 2007, I think it was, or something. That video, just because of the presence it got on YouTube, came up in the Google search for tuba for about 10 years straight, from something like I'm going to say like the year 2000 till 2010, or maybe even 13 or 4, somewhere in there. If you went on Google and typed in tuba, you'd see like tuba and the Wikipedia, and then you'd see 3 videos. The first one was always the Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
my face, like, if you Googled tuba, you would see my face right there on Google for about 10 years straight. And that was pretty weird because people would talk about like Googling things and all that. And people would see that from Google. For some reason, Google put that up there.
That's probably before Google owned YouTube, I would imagine. Not exactly sure when that took place.
It was. I'm thinking it was before they owned YouTube that it was on there, and after. I think it was up there as the first search result for a long time, and then at some point I looked it up one year and it was gone. that was
the rise and fall.
That was the rise and fall of the Tuba Dylan empire.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Yeah. No, I definitely. I remember. Like when YouTube was just like blossoming into something, just like I'd search trombone or tuba or cat videos or whatever whatever you were trying to see, and I definitely remember the Super Mario one. I remember the national anthem. I remember the Battle Hymn of the Old Republic. I think I don't know that I had an official account at that time to even have subscribed. I don't even know those days. That's so long ago. But yeah, I definitely was watching all of those as they came out because I was very excited about the tuba. I mean, still excited about the tuba, but especially at that time was kind of the early days of me being excited about the tuba.
Yeah, I had some tuba excerpts, and I did some sort of fun ones. I played through a book of film score music from the movie The Flintstones, the one with John Goodman, where Tommy Johnson played all these great solos, and I liked it, and I asked him if he had the music, and he said yes. So he made me or probably made it for a bunch of students, but he made these books in his house, and he gave me a book of all the from the Flintstones, and I recorded that and put that on YouTube. I think that was fun for people to watch, but it was just I would call it excerpts from the Flintstones movie or something like that.
That's funny.
On the tuba. That was one of my early tuba videos. Just trying to think of things to do. I mean, back then I was working like as a film score guy, and I ran around town and did some gigs on the tuba. And, I've always been kind of a free spirit. So working different things and doing different things in my life. So YouTube it just seemed like a fun thing to try. And I like that I've sort of stuck with it because I think there's a neat community to it. I'm kind of known as a tuba dude because I've done some reviews and I started playing tuba and all that. But I also, I'm a YouTube fan. I subscribe to it. I pay for their yearly service so I don't get ads on mine, so I can just watch what I like to watch. And but I think it's a super useful teaching tool, and you can do it for free. So I think the free thing is a really cool aspect of it too, that people can get information for free, which definitely is what your show provides from the videos you've done. I've seen the produced and this show that you do live. You could get really free advice from people of all different types.
Yeah, that's definitely something that I've been trying to do with this, and Yeah, I mean, even today, I was trying to, when I was trying to put this, just the logo in between us on here, I learned how to do that through using YouTube today. I was like, I got this thing in Illustrator, and how do I get it onto OBS? And that's how I learned how to do that task. So, I feel like with maybe the few things that I know how to do, I can kind of pay it forward with putting that on the internet and hopefully, helping someone out with something that maybe they don't know or don't know as well. So yeah, I think that's a great part of YouTube, and I think that's kind of the times that we're in. I mean, I use YouTube to learn most things. It's like, oh, this part of my car isn't working. Like the button for the AC has gone out. How easy is that to change on this model? Just literally whatever it could be. Those sorts of things on YouTube are so helpful. There's things that are less helpful too, but there's plenty that's really, really, really helpful. But yeah, I think one thing that, I know that most of my viewers, at least on the live show, I think that a lot of them are tuba players. And I know from watching your earlier videos, I remember because everyone that I knew that was like a real tuba player in town, they'd always talk about like the mythical York-Brunner tuba. When I was in late middle school and early high school, and I remember seeing your videos of it. That was kind of like the first of your HB50. That was the first I'd really ever seen of that instrument, because I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, which is effectively not a small town, but it's not like it's crawling with tuba players or anything. So I just remember my teacher would always talk about that instrument, and I was like, I remember coming into a lesson one time and be like, I saw a video with that York-Brunner. But maybe you could talk about, you don't have to necessarily grab them all or anything, but maybe you could talk about the tubas you've had to now, or when you got them and things like that.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about my tubas, and I think I've got them all here. So I got good diagnosis on my knee, which I injured several weeks ago, and I carried a tuba up the stairs today, knowing that I was going to be on just in case. I wanted to show it. It's super progress. Trust me, tubas are heavy.
Right.
One of the worst things about being a tuba player is that tubas are really heavy, and one of the best things about being a tuba player is you're not a harpist.
Right.
Yeah.
That's one of very few good things, but yes.
Yes. All right. So I'll go. I mean, you want to see the York-Brunner? That is probably my favorite tuba, at least as far as just raw sound is concerned.
Sure.
I don't know if I have a matching mouthpiece for it right near it, but if I do, I'll put it in. I'll just bring it over. I'll show it.
Awesome. I'll try to get you full screen. Make sure that that's working.
Well, I'm gonna widen this so you can see me walk all the way over in my broken knee glory and all that. I'm gonna walk back there and grab it, and I look for a mouthpiece. Be right back.
Awesome. Yeah, I think everything's working on this. I'll put myself full screen for now. Yeah, I've got some logos that are popping up now for my videos, so hopefully they're working okay for everybody. I don't quite know how to use OBS very well, so they pop up every single time, so that might get slightly annoying. If it's really annoying, I'll try to change it. But yeah, we've got, hopefully the audio and everything's okay. I know there haven't been a ton of people chatting in the comment section, but if you notice that our levels are very mismatched or something like that, feel free to mention it in the comments. Also, if you have questions, that's definitely more than okay.
That is the York-Brunner HB. I can't hear you right now. I'll put my headphones on in a second, but I just wanted to hold it up to give your viewers an idea of some size about it, because this tuba is just an absolute monster when it comes to the size, especially compared to other York tubas. The height is a little bit higher. It goes higher than the other York copies, because it's a copy of the crummy York, from what I've been told. The one that got run over by a train or something. I don't remember exactly what the story is, but
are you talking about the one that Arnold Jacobs played? I think.
Okay, here, I'm coming back to get the headphones on.
Sorry,
I can't hear you. Okay. Headphones on. There we go. Now I can hear you.
I think the one that got damaged you're talking about. I think a harp got dropped out in an elevator shaft. I think that's what happened.
Okay.
I'm not
Okay.
100% sure. Maybe someone will correct me, but
You sure that it could be that someone threw it down an elevator shaft and then threw the harp on top of it? They
yeah,
were just
yeah,
really upset about some playing one night,
yeah,
in a musical production or something like that.
right.
Well,
But
no,
yeah, the York-Brunners, that's definitely, that's one of those tubas that I've always thought about. But especially back in the day, that was one of very few of those sorts of horns around. And I feel like now they're a little less popular. You don't see them quite as often, but they're still, very, very great tubas that a lot of people love to play.
Well, okay. So a great thing about the York-Brunner, I guess any of the Hirschbrenner instruments, if you've laid your hands on a Hirschbrenner instrument, it's a precision made, instrument. It kind of reminds me of Yamaha in a way. So, even though it's European, but there's just something about how well they put this thing together, considering how incredibly huge it is, and the bow and the bell, and it's heavy. It's pretty heavy, but it's remarkably light for its size, I think.
Yeah, I think that's somewhat common on a lot of 6/4 horns, that they tend to make, especially a lot of handmade parts that go into it, and it ends up being lighter than you'd expect. Still very, very certainly heavy, but lighter. I know I have a Neptune, which is roughly the same size, and it's actually lighter than a lot of PT6s that are technically smaller, but they're just a little bit thicker and just kind of end up being heavier instruments overall. But yeah, I wonder, have you had a chance to try out any of the Adams instruments that are made, I think, on the same tooling as the Hirschbrenner stuff?
Yeah, they're made on the same tooling. This horn was a transitional horn, and I believe that there were some parts on this horn that were made with the tooling when it was brand new. Maybe even the very first year they were making tooling was the first year that these were not totally handmade. And I'm not actually sure. It was a 1994 serial number. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, the Hirschbrenners are out of business. But when I got the horn, I was told that they had been experimenting with my horn in particular, using some machine parts and some handmade parts.
Yeah.
But that the final result from the factory was that Hirschbrenner loved it, and decided to send it. So they had actually, at that time, I was playing a lot, and so they sent me a horn on loan to play for a while, just as a spec horn. I didn't have a YouTube channel or anything, but I was playing in LA a lot, and they did that. They knew I knew Tommy, and they knew him too. So anyway, they sent me a York-Brunner to try for 3 months or so, and then I decided I wanted it. So I had to send that one back and wait for this one. So then I waited and I had to wait another 6 months for this one. They were only making, I think, 8 of them per year or something when they were ramping up. I mean, for that, I don't know what they make now in Adams. But back then I think they were making maybe 8 a year at the most of these. I think that was even maybe after they amped up production with the machine parts, but
Gotcha.
I don't remember for sure. But Hirschbrenner instruments, I've tried a few different ones, and they're just they're like a really, really resonant guitar. If you play guitar and you pick up certain guitars, and it doesn't necessarily matter what the brand is, but just sometimes the tone woods and the way the guitar is, it will literally vibrate even from your voice talking next to it. It'll
Right.
resonate with your voice, and there's something about certain guitars and how they ring. And I think there's the same thing with brass instruments, at least the way it feels when I play brass instruments, that some ring and just sound more lush than others. Something about the Hirschbrenner sound has a really special ring to it. I'd almost say that was all 6/4 instruments, but I've played a number of other 6/4 instruments that don't have the sound that this quite has.
There's some dogs out there. You know,
Yeah,
not,
well, yeah, I've had to put work into this one.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's, you know, at some level, a tuba gets old enough, it's going to need some work. I know with my, you know, my F is from 1972. So, you know, it's a great horn. I think it has that same sort of, you know, resonating quality that you're talking about. But, you know, there's definitely some work that has to go into things sometimes. But yeah, those first versions, I've only played, I think, one HB50, but I've played a handful of the norm, like the 4/4 C's, like that, the HB2, is that right?
They have the HB1 and 2.
I think the HB2 is the one that I played a couple models of that, and then I played, I
One,
think, just,
one has the lead pipe that swoops, and the other one doesn't. I think
I
it's
played the
something
swoopy
like
one, whatever that
Okay.
one is.
that. Okay, I think that's what Doug has. Doug Tornquist in LA.
And then I played one of the Fs once. I think they had a couple models of Fs, but yeah, a lot of chatter about All-State stuff, mostly in Texas.
Oh yeah,
Kind of a separate conversation almost. With all the All-State.
Is Texas in the state finals for football and stuff like that?
I think they're just talking about All-State music stuff.
Okay.
Since I did all of the videos for Texas for all of their etudes, and that's kind of a big thing to most high school tuba players or high school musicians around this area. You know, one of my top video on my channel is the one that I did last year, which I think is getting pretty close to breaking 100,000 views, which, you know, for tuba videos, not too shabby.
That's not shabby at all. That's
right.
awesome. Yeah, that's great.
Is that the F bass in the back? Not sure if you're talking about in my video. Wrong way. Behind me is my F tuba. You can kind of see. And there are definitely 1, 2, or 3, or maybe 6 F tubas behind Mr. Tuba Dylan here. Not sure how many F tubas you have.
Oh, back here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think 5.
So maybe just for all the people on here, could you just tell us all the tubas? Actually, I don't think I know. I know some of the tubas you have, but I don't.
Oh, you want to hear the tubas I have?
Yeah.
Well, that will be helpful for me to keep track of them.
Yeah, for insurance purposes.
So this is yeah. I'll put it on your channel. You're gonna get a letter from my agent when it burns down.
Right.
Oh, here comes Landon. I'm on live, Landon. You can say hi, but then you gotta go back because we're doing a really fun video. You see it? Isn't that cool? Okay, that's my boy Landon. He's a really great kid. We're just gonna start learning guitar, Landon and I.
Awesome.
Yeah, and JoJo too. His sister, she plays piano, and she will also be learning guitar with us.
Well, looks like you have at least a few guitars to get things started with behind you.
Oh yeah, we have lots of great guitars here. But I'll tell you about my tubas here. So yeah, this is the York-Brunner, the 6/4 Hirschbrunner York tuba. Mine's particular model was built in 1994. And then I have a Yamaha 822 F tuba, which is the Jim Self model F tuba. And Yamaha has tweaked that tuba many times over the years. So mine is a more modern version of it. I think mine is a 2015 or 16. I didn't get it too long ago. And it actually plays much better in tune than the other one I tried. I've tried one other one, and it was hard to play in tune. But this one is easier to play in tune, not my best in tune F tuba. I've got a Yamaha YFB 622, which is the original small 3/4 5-valve F tuba by Yamaha that Roger Bobo used to record on some of his recordings, one of his favorites. But he had it modified. So his original tuba that was a 622, he put a bigger bell on it, and then they actually made another model out of that.
That one specifically is one of my favorite F tubas. That's definitely on the wish list. If Yamaha's watching right now, I can put my address in the chat and they can send me that tuba.
Yeah, and this one's one of my very favorite. This is a pretty special one. This came off the line. I think it's the serial number is like 104. This is one of the ones that isn't stamped with any Yamaha logo because they weren't stamping. They didn't stamp the ones that came out of their design part of their factory. So the way Yamaha works, because it's this huge corporation that has a ton of different things that it builds and all that, just, I mean, from like motorcycles and
Right.
I don't know, parts for medical equipment, all the way to world-class tubas, violins, guitars, everything. So in all these different things, like there's the brass factory, you could even see videos on YouTube with people going through it.
Yeah,
But
there's one of Doug Yeo going through there, I think.
Yeah. They have master craftsmen that design these instruments, the Yamaha instruments. And it goes through all different levels of testing, and they bring their artists in, and the first ones, like my 621 was one of the early ones. And those are usually like fully handmade from that particular shop. But now they're not handmade, but the new ones probably play maybe even somewhat better than mine. I don't really know. But that thing plays perfectly in tune, and it's so easy to play all the way up and down the whole horn. If you just need a horn that's just F tuba that you can play anything on, fast, easy, in tune, that's the way to go. But it has its limits as far as sound,
Sure.
volume and expression, because it's so small that your dynamic range is limited in that tuba. Where a tuba like this, the dynamic range is immense because it's so big and vast, so you can play really soft and really loud. And the smaller the bore size, and the less that it's conical, like the less that happens. But also the more nimble it is, so maybe sort of the more easy it is just to play all the notes and kind of fly around and play anything you want.
Right. That smaller Yamaha F, there were, when I was an undergrad at UNT, I think there were 2 people that had them at one point. So there were a couple that I got to play there. And then when I did the Disney band, I didn't have the F version, but we had the B flat and the C version that we had access to. So it's definitely not quite the same, but they're very similar instruments, just a couple extra feet of tubing. Other than that, they're pretty much identical. But yeah, it's that F version. It's definitely one of the easiest instruments to play. I don't know that I'll ever own one. It's not like on the top of my list, but again, like it's as far as ease of playing, it's very much on the top.
And it's small and compact. I mean, I've traveled with that tuba to Hawaii, no problem,
Right.
checking it in the Yamaha case. Now, when I check things in that Yamaha case, I have fortified that case. I don't have it here because I keep it in my attic, but I've fortified it. So, things do get beat up and dropped and all that. So if you do travel with a hard flight case, it's good to fortify it in some ways. And I did with that one. And so far it's flown several times, but it flew to Hawaii, switched planes in LA, back and forth. I think I've done that 2 times, one time me taking it and another time a friend taking it with me. So when I was there, I could play with it. A really nice guy that was able to take it with me when I was carrying all the strollers and everything else going to Hawaii. But I had a friend going, and he didn't have much luggage. One of my single pals, and he brought it for me. So anyway,
kind.
Yamaha they just design things great. So I just love Yamaha. I have several Yamaha trumpets, and I know you might have some trombone players in your audience. I have 2 terrific Yamaha trombones. My bass trombone's a Doug Yeo Yamaha bass trombone. It has the removable D slide, the second slide. And then I have the Wycliffe Gordon / Andy Martin Batman Yamaha Z jazz trombone.
Yeah.
Which is smoking jazz horn. It's really cool.
Yeah, so. I like that. I like that horn a good bit. Yamaha is like my favorite company that I don't own anything from. I just, for whatever reason, I've never gotten one of their instruments, but they've made my wish list many a times. Just never quite made it from the shopping cart to my house,
Well, then, so other tubas I have, talking about Yamaha, I'll move to, I have the Mac Brass 3/4 Yamaha double C copy with the large bell. I had that one. I actually did a ridiculous video on YouTube. So look up Mac Brass double C review, and you'll find.
Is that the one
YouTube.
That fell out of the car? Is that right?
Or
no?
Yes, that one fell out of the car. Oh, and Tom was upset that I aired that. So I fixed it in the next video and told the audience that there was no damage to it, and it really wasn't his fault that it plopped out that way in that video. It was like an unboxing video, but yeah, it fell out. It fell out right while we were filming. But almost every time I film those videos, I dent a horn or something. So
Tubas are big. It happens.
It does. It happens quite a bit. This horn's gone through its war stages here, this York-Brunner, but there are no huge dings that affect anything, and the lead pipe's perfectly clean. And these Bowerfield valves that it has on it, they weren't perfect the first 2 years I had it. That third valve took a while before it worked in. When it finally stopped sticking once in a while, because it did at the very beginning, which happens on some new horns. Mm-hmm. Those valves are the smoothest, they've most well aligned, perfect valves of any tuba, and quiet. I've got those Joel Salzmanberger bouncy bumpies on them that he sent them to me, and my repair guy cut them right and put it in there.
Awesome.
So yeah, they're super good. They're super good. They make them real quiet.
Yeah, I mostly play all my tubas are rotors, but piston valves with the work-in period, especially getting used to your hands and how exactly how you're pushing them down. It's always a little bit of a struggle, which is why I sometimes prefer rotor tubas. But yeah. So what other tubas do we have?
Well, back behind there is my 5/4 5-valve Wilson double B flat tuba.
I didn't know
Swiss
you had
company.
That one.
I have that one, and from the Swiss, the other Swiss company that makes handmade tubas.
Right.
I think that one is totally handmade. Why do I have that tuba? Because I follow eBay. I've been on eBay since 2001. That shows how long I've been surfing the internet. But my eBay, that's the first time I sold something on eBay, was 2001.
Wow.
So. And I've bought and sold a lot of things on eBay, and actually made a lot of money investing in things and seeing opportunities on eBay for instruments. Because people will put ads. I talked about this on one of my videos, how to sell a trumpet on eBay, plug. But anyway, a lot of people will put ads on eBay, and they'll write a really crummy ad, and they'll auction off the horn. And people want to see sparkle and beauty when they want to bid for a horn. So like if I sell an instrument, or if I sell something, man, I bling it up. I take great photos. I'm a good copyist. I'm a good writer. So I'll write out a really good ad and explain it in depth and just be really honest about everything, and I end up getting quite large profits. But on the other side of it are the people who don't do that, who have people like me who lurk on YouTube, and when they see a Wilson 5/4 totally handmade B flat in 100% perfect condition, I ended up getting that tuba for less than $5,000 in absolutely mint condition off of eBay, which was a shock to me, because I think that tuba is about $15,000.
Yeah, those aren't cheap tubas.
No. But I'm not a B flat player, so I took it to my community band one time. Struggled through a whole rehearsal and actually played way better than I thought I would. Playing bass clef on a B flat tuba for the first time ever. I brought it to my community band and did a full sight read rehearsal on it, and I actually played better than I thought. But generally, tuba music is pretty easy, so that's a good thing about us tubists.
Yeah. I hadn't really spent much time playing B flat until like a couple of years ago, actually, because I got my C tuba when I was a freshman in high school. So most of my tuba life was on a C tuba. But yeah, I've come to kind of like B flat. I almost bought one. I had like kind of a long-term loan with a friend who was trying to sell one, and I was very close to buying it, but just I knew I wouldn't use it quite enough.
The low register is, as you can imagine, I mean, it's beefier. I mean, if you're playing something in a flat key and you're playing a lot of low stuff down there, that's why people are into those tubas and the orchestras playing Prokofiev and stuff like that. They know they can get even a deeper, darker like sound out of some big B flat tubas. So, but the only reason I have that tuba, because I'm not really a B flat player, was just that when I was lurking, I saw that someone put it up for auction, and I put like a crazy low number. I think it was like 5K, and I won it for less. And I thought, oh, that's awesome. But honestly, I didn't. Like I said, I've only played it then, and I think I played it in one live stream and just kind of noodled around on it. That B flat tuba. It hasn't had a lot of work, but behind that is my Mac. It's not a Mac brass. It's a M&M clone of the PT-15. And so that's a rotary valve F tuba, and that tuba is surprisingly wonderful to play. Like, being that it's a Chinese tuba, that it's just stamped M&M. It's a company that I don't think exists, but I think it was somebody who had sold tubas out of their garage in Florida at one time.
That's still a Jin Bao made instrument, right?
It's a Jin Bao made instrument. Yeah. And you can tell, like, the parts are kind of jiggly wiggly on it, and it's factory. You can tell the difference between a handmade instrument and something that's made factory assembly line, really for really inexpensive labor, like that horn. But the final result, as far as like putting your sound through the horn and the intonation, is just phenomenal. It plays. My cousin was a professional tuba player, and he had a PT-15, and this one plays better than his did. I played on Tommy Johnson's F tuba, which was a PT-10 with the Miraphone 185 bell, and I still think this tuba plays better in the low register and plays better in tune than even that one that I tried of his. So that's, for a cheap tuba, it's great.
Yeah, I mean, not all the, it's yes, there's a difference between a handmade tuba, from Switzerland or something, but yeah, I have a Mac brass euphonium, and it's done very well for me. It's kind of tarnished, and people are like, oh, they'll hear me play, and it's like, oh, is that a Wilson or is that a Besson? And it's just like, yep, no, it's a Mac brass, and it's, if you can play it and it sounds good, it kind of doesn't matter. It's kind of the way that I think about it. I did have to replace a few of the bumpers and things like that pretty quickly, but the felts and things like that. But those are things that go bad on all instruments. So, but yeah, I probably will buy a few more instruments from that part of the world at some point.
Well, Tom McGrady just came out with his Mac brass Zoe F tuba. He just launched that.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of it. I haven't played it. I mean, the world doesn't really promote it. You can't really play much.
People say it looks like a Gronitz F, and like at a quick glance, to me it's a little bit definitely similar. The way the second valve sticks out like that. I played on some Gronitz F tubas, and they were really good instruments. I mean, the piston F tubas, you get more security in just that small low range that the rotary valve F tubas have trouble with.
Yeah, I'll never sell I shouldn't say never, but I'll probably never sell my Symphony, but I very much plan on having, a piston F tuba at some point for those very reasons.
Yeah, I mean a lot of the studio guys play the majority and have for years on piston F tubas.
Yeah, if I had to, rely on it completely in a studio situation, I feel like with my F, it does a lot of things really well, and there are a lot of things that are just absolutely, perfect, and just exactly the way I want to sound. But there are certain things where I wouldn't say it's walking on eggshells, but you got to be a little bit careful.
What I like the best about rotary horns is just my pure laziness as far as emptying spit. The York, this is a crazy thing to talk about, but you know what? It's a real issue for us tuba players. So the York style tubas and a lot of the piston tubas, just because of their one way and the slides are down here and slides are up here, they gather quite a bit of condensation and water inside the tubes, and you just have to pull the slides out and move your horn around and dump them around at certain times. Now, some horns like the Miraphone horns, In particular, my Brookner is the best thing for that, but it's the same thing with this PT15 clone as well. The water just goes down and out. So, I mean, the Germans designed it right in a way, because when they play that, they designed it to play over there at Oktoberfest in these bands where they play 8 hours a day and they're drinking beer the whole entire time, you know, and they don't have to do that. They just dump. They never worry about that water because they have one spit valve and it all goes out, no problem. And I love that. I mean, that's why I play my Brookner in my community band, because band music, you're playing the whole time. And, you know, just one little whoof and the water's gone. But you get these orchestral tubas and band music. It's like every single tune that you do in a rehearsal. So if you're like me and you're kind of OCD about having water in your horn, and I'm like that, I'm like, dump, 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 dump.
That is definitely one of my favorite things about having a rotor tuba. You know, especially with my Neptune, it came factory with 3 spit valves. And there were 2 on the top of like the 4th and 3rd valve slide, and I just eventually got those covered and got rid of them because there was never any water there. All the water went straight to the main tuning slide. There was no part of me that really needed that. So, but yeah, that's definitely one of those nice things. And then even with my euphonium, I feel like a lot of the time I'm just chasing, exactly exactly where the water is, and it's like I got it, and then it's like nope, I didn't get it. But
I want to respond to one of your fans here, Christian Fox, who's coming in from somewhere, is the C circle there. He says Dylan looks like he is the guy to fart and accidentally poop himself. So I just want to say, Christian, that you are an incredibly observant person. That is absolutely true. I'm 46 years old, and if I said that there's never been a time when I've farted and I've accidentally pooped myself, that would be a lie. So I just want to answer questions for your viewers as they come. Well, I'm a happy, honest guy here. So sorry to interrupt, but
no, you're good.
Back to tubas. Back to tubas.
There's a big pull in the audience right now for me to break my focus. I don't know what that's. I guess I'm too focused right now. Does me acknowledging that everyone wants to break focus, does that mean that I broke focus?
I don't know what that means. You look. I think it looks great.
Your
feet. Yeah.
Yeah, but there were also some other questions that there were comments about what cars we look like we drive. That was another thing.
Oh, that's interesting.
I believe I think that someone said that you look like you drive a Ford Fiesta, and I looked like I drove a Honda Civic or a Kia Soul. Were the 2 top answers.
Okay. Well, my first car was a Toyota FX16 hatchback. If you can look it up on Google, it looks a little like a Ford Fiesta. So
there's some truth to it.
Whoever guessed that was my first car in Los Angeles when I was 17. I got that car because it had a back door. If you're on the internet right now, just look it up. Toyota Corolla FX16 1988 was my first car. And that was a great tuba car because I was in LA and I needed to get around 2 tubas, me and stuff. And that had a hatchback, and I could put my horns in the back of that, cover them up with some like sleeping bags and things that made it look like homeless people slept in there, just so no one knew there were tubas.
Right.
And I would kind of plank around town in that. Although that car did eventually get broken into for my awesome cassette stereo player that had like a 300 watt amplifiers under the seats. That was a bummer.
Yeah. What can you do? At least it wasn't a tuba.
Yeah, I did grow up in a weird place for music, so we didn't really talk about that. I didn't talk too much about myself, but I grew up in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, born and raised there, and it is the place where everyone who really makes it in music, that really makes it, ends up going to LA. So it's a weird place for some of the local musicians as an experience, because there are constantly musicians moving in and fluctuating through Los Angeles. And that's a difference between other towns, I think, even in the entire world. LA is unique. I think London and New York also in different ways, of course, but LA even maybe the most so, because when everyone who makes it really big wants a place in LA because the weather's so great there,
Right.
and they want to be in the movie business.
Right. Where all the pretty people are, right?
I don't know. My mother was in the movie business. I think she was super pretty. So
there you go.
I mean, I'll say that about her.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, LA was one of the spots that I thought about moving to at one point. That when I did the Disney band, that was kind of like, I went out there and I was trying to feel it out and see if that might be something I wanted to do. Clearly, that's not how I ended, things. I ended up not wanting to move there, but we've got a lot of friends who live there, and a lot of friends who have moved there and are planning to move there. It's definitely one of those places. Right now, I'm pretty happy in Texas, but that could always change.
Texas is a good place to be. I like Texas a lot.
Yeah,
I like North Carolina too. I was just going to say, I live in the Charlotte area, and I hope I never have to move. I definitely would never want to move back to California. And I don't mean any disrespect, and I'm not going to talk about anything political per se. Just I'm happy to be away from this humongous crowd of people that just keeps building, and where there's an end with the coast. Being on the East or the West Coast, I think there's a compromise because you hit that ocean, so there's going to be more congestion. To be in a place where there's a little less congestion around you, Texas, I'm in southwestern North Carolina, so I have a little bit of space between me here too. I love it. Like that was sort of a dream of mine. So I left LA when I was 33 and came here. So
someone mentioned that Disneyland is a tough gig and the same amount of playing. Yeah, I guess it's a lot of playing, but it's not like, it's definitely not an impossible thing. I don't know how much, Dylan, about that gig, but I assume from being from there, but but yeah, at least the way that when I did it, we had 5 sets a day, and they were maybe like 30, 40 minutes each. So it wasn't a ton. It was a good amount of playing. We got to zoom in.
You played at Disneyland?
In the All-American College Band.
Okay. So like as a summer kind of stint. Okay. So I played at Disneyland. I'll tell you my story. I played at Disneyland when I'm pretty sure I was 12 years old. I was playing trombone in the California Junior Philharmonic Orchestra. It was the first time I had played something outside of my junior high. And I played second trombone, and we did a concert at Disneyland. That orchestra was so fun, by the way. There's a band, I think it still exists. Ernst Katz, I think the guy who did it may have died recently. But there's an orchestra in LA called the California Junior Philharmonic for young kids to audition, where the kids are really good. And there's certain other pros that play in it sort of to help the kids out. Gotcha. And I got to play in this orchestra. We went to Disneyland to play a concert, and I was 12 years old. We played the concert. It was really fun. And after the concert, we got to go around in Disneyland for free. So it was kind of like a free entrance into Disneyland.
Win-win.
Oh, when was it?
No, I said win-win.
Oh, it was definitely a win-win. Certainly a win-win, because I was 12 years old, and I got, I played. I put my horn away. I think my mom took my horn. We met her at the front, and then my friend and I went running into the park. Now, this friend I was with, he was a bit of a troublemaker. I was not a trouble. This is a memorable experience for me at Disneyland. I grew up in Southern California, so I went to Disneyland many times, and I've been to even secret places in Disneyland, just because. But anyway, this particular time, I almost got arrested at Disneyland. We went to this place called Tom Sawyer Island that's on Disneyland. It's an island where they had these boats that would go around it, and these rides and these canoes and all that. And my friend was like, let's throw some of these dirt clogs at the canoes. Now, I was like a good kid. I didn't do that. I was like an orchestral into playing music and didn't do that. But my friend, he was kind of a bad kid, but he was like one of my mom's friends that came to meet me at Disneyland. So he started throwing the clogs, and he was terrible shot. He didn't play. I played baseball at the time, and I could really throw the ball, and he did. And I don't know why I did it. I have no idea what happened, but that time, this was that one time I played at Disneyland. I picked up that dirt clog, just one. He had missed 10 times. I threw it, and it hit the Disney employee who was riding the canoe smack dab on the side of the head and exploded on his head. Right there. And that guy turned to me. He turned and pointed right at me and looked me in the eye from the canoe. and he pulled out a radio and started going, rah, 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 rah. And my buddy said, run. And he turned and he just ran on out of there. But what we did, what people who have been to Disneyland, the only way to get to that island is on this robotic raft that's on a track. So we went all the way back to this raft that was on a track to get back. And when we got on the raft, we heard the guys who were running the raft go, these two guys over here. Yeah, the guy in the tuxedo, like, because I played in the orchestra, and oh man, when our raft got to the other side, the Disney cops, security guards were running at us, and they took us into custody, and they brought us underground to a place underneath the Pirates of the Caribbean where they actually had like a little room that was some sort of holding cell. And they have
Disney jail down there.
Well, yeah, they had Disney jail. I went there.
It's a whole ecosystem. They've got to have a jail.
Yeah, it's a huge place, right? It's a huge place. Yeah. So I kind of went to Disney jail. The one time I played at Disneyland, I ended up in Disney jail. They sat across from me and my friend, and they said, "Did you throw the rock at the guy?" My friend's like, "We didn't do it." I said, "Yeah, it was me. I hit him." I said, I broke down, man. I was like crying because I was a good kid. I never got in trouble. I was like, got good grades, played music, never got in trouble. This was like a stupid decision of peer pressure,
Yeah.
And it just, because my arm was good and because just all the stars aligned in the wrong way for that dude, I hit him when I threw that clog. So I just broke down. I said, "I'm so sorry. It was me. I feel so bad about it. I'm just so sorry." And They were surprised that I told the truth.
Yeah.
And I was surprised that they, number one, didn't press charges. They said, "Well, he doesn't want to press charges. He's glad you fessed up to it. He's not hurt or anything." It wasn't a rock. It exploded as a piece of dirt clog. So that was good. And then they actually let us stay in the park. I'm 100% sure that if I had lied or if I had said, no, it wasn't us, or I didn't do it, or because I'm sure they had us maybe on video, but there was just no doubt about it that it was us who did it. That they at least would have kicked us out of the park. But they actually let us stay in the park. But they told me we have closed caption TVs all around this park. I mean, this is back in, this would have been 1986.
So probably not, but it is Disney. They might have.
Oh, I'm sure they had closed caption TV surveillance even back then. Yeah, in the 80s, I'm sure they had that. It was just, it would be cool to see it in a movie today because it would be a lot of these tube TVs in some underground room in Disney, just a whole bunch of tube TVs, like feel like the CIA,
a little different now.
The CIA or something. Yeah, now, I mean, who knows? Disney's probably flying drones over their parks, making sure that nobody is doing weird stuff.
Probably so.
Anyway, don't mean to. I'm sharing that with your audience. I have no idea why. It just rang a bell when you said about playing in Disneyland, because the one time I ever played in Disneyland was also the day I almost got arrested there.
Yeah.
And I've been there many other times, but.
Yeah, I don't think I almost got arrested while I was playing there over the summer, but maybe my memory is selective. But yeah, I had a good time playing there. It was fun. That's like the only time in my life that I played sousaphone consistently, because I never marched in high school or in college or anything. So, but yeah, I got used to playing. It was all Yamaha instruments, of playing a Yamaha sousaphone. But yeah, it was a good amount of fun. But yeah, so hopefully everyone in the chat now knows that, if you tell the truth, you might get to stay in Disneyland. Just as a general life suggestion, if you want to stay in Disneyland, always tell the truth. I can't guarantee that it'll always work out, but we've got anecdotal evidence that it will.
That was the closest I think I ever came to jail in my life. Actually, was that time. I was 12 years old, and I probably deserved worse. I can't believe they let us stay in the park. And I am very thankful that the guy just like let me go, like that he didn't care.
Yeah.
He knew I was a kid. I was a kid,
Also, don't throw dirt. Another person mentioned. So that's probably also a good way to stay out of trouble, is not throwing dirt. Mr. Marley, have you ever been close to being arrested? I wouldn't say I've been close to being arrested. I've never been in handcuffs or anything of that nature. So I would say no. I've gotten a ticket here or there, but that's my biggest trouble with the law.
I have never gotten a traffic ticket. I'm 46, been driving since I was 17, and I have never gotten a traffic ticket. I was pulled over one time with the last car I bought, which was only a year ago, brand new 2019 Subaru Ascent, which I
So
paid cash
not a
for.
Ford Fiesta, to be very clear.
I'm revealing my current car. It's actually a wonderful car. I have the touring top of the line model of that car. It has built-in Wi-Fi throughout the car, built-in USB throughout the car, more cup holders than any car, fits tubas, and really just drives like a charm in bad weather. And it's built like a tank. The Subarus are just really built very well, kind of like the Yamaha tubas.
Yeah, there you go.
The Subarus are built really well. So I've got a Subaru Ascent, and I got pulled over for the very first time last year when I drove it off the lot because I bought the car right as the dealership was closing, signed all the paperwork, got in the car, and sat in the car for about 45 minutes playing with the settings because I was about 45 minutes from home here when I got it. And I was playing with the settings for a while in the Subaru parking lot. And while I was doing that, they're shutting down the whole dealership. They turned all the lights off. So then I left the dealership on the way home because I finished like, oh yeah, okay, I'm ready to drive home now. I had traded in my other car. And I started driving home. And as soon as I made a right turn out of the dealership, he must have been watching me. What I got lit up by the local Concord Police Department where I bought it. And they pulled me over, and I was very good. I worked for the police department at UCLA. We had a community service program at UCLA where we walked girls home at night for safety, and did sort of community service stuff. And I worked through the ranks there. I worked there for over 3 years there, and I was a supervisor of the resident hall safety program when I was a student there at UCLA. Incidentally, so I knew a lot about cops because I had a lot of cop friends in LA. So I know how to, that's the first time I ever got pulled over. I put my hands on the wheel and pulled into the gas station and stopped, and he came up, and the guy looks at me, and I rolled down the window. I had my hands up here like this, and he goes, "Let me guess, you just bought that car, right?" And I said, "I absolutely did. And I have the receipt in my pocket." And, then he took my information, and he was really, really nice. And he told me like they have thefts all the time there in those dealerships, and they're watching, and he obviously saw me. He said I ran your plate, and it went back to the Nissan Quest, which was my other family car that I traded for it. And this is not a Quest, and because in North Carolina you bring the plate with the new car. They give you your old plate and you stick it on your new car, and then it like switches over in their system and whatever. It's more attached to you than the car in a weird way here. Just the way they do it here. So I put that plate on that car, and he ran that plate as he was pulling out behind me, and he pulled me over. That was the first time. I should have taken a selfie with him. He was like a really nice police officer. I really like police officers. So most of them are pretty they're not, there's always a bad cop somewhere, but most of them have been really nice and helpful, like throughout my life, in dealing with them when I've had to.
Yeah. I've only gotten one speeding ticket, and it was relatively recently. It was you just missed a sign and got a ticket. So, but I generally tend to follow all traffic laws, but nobody's perfect.
There's a guy here who takes his tuba to rehearsal in a hitch off of his Segway. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I kind of don't believe you, but I like your spirit. If you really do that, that's even more awesome. Or if it's just a joke, that's a great joke.
Right. Yeah. I drive a pretty big sedan. My wife and I kind of swap cars and things, but I drive an Impala, which is a great tuba car. So for all those who thought I drove a Civic, or I can't remember what the other one was, but yeah, an Impala is the tuba mobile of my choosing, which can fit a surprisingly large number of instruments in its trunk. I can fit my Neptune, my F tuba, and 3 trombones all in the trunk without putting down the back seat, which doesn't go down. But
speaking of that, Zach, I got a question for you regarding that and where you are. So do you pay a separate instrument insurance since you work professionally and you're carrying your horns in your car?
So I technically do homeowners insurance for most of my instruments because not all of them do I make enough money on that I think that is technically required. But if my insurance companies are watching this, maybe they have they'll have some other ideas. But yeah, so that's basically what I do is homeowners insurance. But because the only instrument that I really play out all the time is a small bore tenor trombone. Or that's not the only instrument, but that's the one that's every weekend that it gets a lot.
So the majority of your gigs, you only have to go out with one trombone.
My or maybe not my cheapest trombone, but on the cheaper side of things.
Okay.
So,
okay.
But yeah, I mean, I do play other gigs, but I feel like they're not getting W-2s for the tuba necessarily. But there is some kind of gray area in that, and maybe I'm not doing the perfect thing for it. Which maybe if someone stole my tubas, I would be out of luck. But I think I'd be all right.
Imagine a sousaphone. Yeah, you were talking about sousaphone, how you played sousaphone that one summer. You're not a sousaphone player. Well, me neither. I bought a sousaphone and played it for a year or two in LA. I played it on certain gigs with a band called the Double Zeros, who just wanted me to do it. And then I played it on another jazz gig, a B flat sousaphone. I had York 1939 York B flat sousaphone. It really had a great sound. I ended up making a huge profit on it when I sold it. But played it on another. I probably played it 8 or 10 times. As far as how many times I actually played a sousaphone out. When I was in junior high, I wanted to play trombone, even though I played tuba too. And then when I got into high school, when it came to marching band, they made you march as like a PE thing. And I just wasn't going to march with my Miraphone 185. I already had it. I got my Miraphone 185 in junior high. So I wasn't going to march with that. And they had these Yamaha upright shoulder bazooka cannon B flats that were light, just super light and super poppy. Like you could just bang notes out of them. But I didn't want to walk with that in a marching band. So I convinced the marching band guys. I played trombone really well back then, just as well as the best trombone players in the school. So I convinced them. They let me play trombone in the marching band, which sort of sucked for the sound of the marching band because there were only a couple tuba players in our high school marching band, even though it was a performing arts school and there were 300 plus in our marching band. Just not a lot of people played the tuba at that time at Hamilton High in LA.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't think that there's a lot of people who are itching to march the sousaphone a lot of times. But yeah, I actually have it's funny, I have a sousaphone in my house right now because a friend of mine just needed a place to throw it. And I was like, yeah, you can put your nice vintage Conn sousaphone in my house as long as I can play it. But yeah, I'll still take a sousaphone gig every now and then. I've got at least some access to a sousaphone, and it comes up that there's kind of almost a separate scene of some of the people around town here that play sousaphone, which I will do occasionally, but it's like a combination of skills that I have, but it's not actually a skill that I have. Playing like bass line things and improvising on the sousaphone. It's related to what I can do, but it's not exactly what I do. Let's see, any interesting comments?
No, I was just looking at the comments. It says, if you have a Yamaha, it's so heavy. Now, I don't know exactly what you mean by that. Yamahas are so well crafted. They're just super well made instruments. There's something, the Japanese just take so much attention to detail, and they're the ones that I think they have the most consistency in their instruments as anyone. The Chinese have probably caught up to some degree, but a lot of the Chinese factories, they've sort of done it under the masters of the Japanese. They got their start with companies like Yamaha moving some of their production into China before all these Chinese mega instrument factories really got huge. I don't know the story behind Jinbao and stuff like that, but Yamaha was making instruments in China before China was really producing for the world like it does now.
Yeah. I think we got through most of your tubas, but did we get through all of them?
No, I don't think so. Okay, so the Brookner I talked about a little bit.
Right.
I've got the Miraphone.
That's a great tuba
Brookner
that I feel like there aren't enough of those in the world.
I'm gonna go grab that one because I love holding that one. I'll be right back. So you entertain the audience for another 5 seconds.
I'll see if there's some chats that I need to get
to.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's see here. some of your chats I can't read online, or will choose not to read online. You got a shopping cart with a V6, or no, V8, excuse me. You have to know what's under the hood before you race someone, so I shouldn't talk any mess about your shopping cart with a V8. But yeah, hopefully you guys are all enjoying the stream. Like I said, if you guys have any specific questions for either of us, or want to pose a question that's not to see if we who would win a UFC fight, see if we can get that tube in a better shot.
So there you go, the Brookner. Let's see, move it a little this way maybe. Brookner double C tuba. Oh yeah, there he's got me on full screen now. There you can see it. Now this tuba is really big too. Actually, they call it a 5/4 tuba, but it's like a 4.25. That's what I'll say. 4.25. I'll come down here so I can put my headphones on and talk to you again. Let's see here. I'll tell you why I like this one in particular. Let's see, where'd I put those things? Okay. There we go.
What are some good tips for a class 1 tuba solo? What my general solo advice, someone's asking what some tips for their tuba solo, and just kind of general advice without looking at what piece you're playing or knowing your skill level or anything, or do a lot of slow practice and practice things down the octave that are maybe too high for you and things like that. Don't worry about playing it the way it needs to go eventually today. Worry about the best way to get it better for the future. So a lot of slow practice is generally one of the better things. I don't know if you have any comments about tuba solos for what Fortnite fan.
Play stuff you like. I mean, hey, look, if you like Fortnite, find a Fortnite tune, one that you're really used to. It's already in. If you play a lot of games, you're probably used to some of the music in the games, and I bet it'd be really good for your ear to sit down and learn a few of those tunes just on your own by ear. So like I've always been a proponent of teaching people to learn how to play things by their ear. So, and that helped me in my music life and career tremendously. To this day, I'm still not a great sight reader on reading music off the page in notes. I'm okay. So like I can mostly do it, but I'm not great because my mind kind of flies around everywhere. I've got a lot of things going on up there, probably too much at times. So as a musician, sometimes that can be distracting. There's a concentration factor to music that some people are better at than others. So I think it's great to learn to play by ear, to play along with tunes, not even to just perform them, but just to learn how to do stuff like that. When I first started playing music, I played piano when I was little, and I used to just play things that I would hear in the background on my parents' television set. And then I did the same with violin. When I first started playing violin about the second grade, I was too lazy and I didn't want to learn how to read music, even though they were teaching notation and how to read music on the violin. But for me, it was so easy, probably because I had played piano and I'm from a music family, so easy to just find the notes on the violin because they were you just slide to them and you can find them with your ear. That I used to cheat. Like the teacher would play and then I could just play what they played and I would pretend I'd be looking at the music, and I didn't learn how to read music until like the 10th grade. Like I almost got through junior high. Like I would play the bass lines and kind of have an idea, but whenever there were any weird rhythms and things like that, I didn't know how to feel it in the music. But if I heard it one time, then I'd be okay. Yeah. That was part of like my growing up as a musician. And I recommend to all young players to do as much playing by ear as you can. Don't concentrate on that one classic solo or this or that. Like just play your horn, pick it up, and just play around when you have a chance with almost anything, and it will strengthen your ear more than you'll ever know, and you'll be surprised at how much better your playing is when you do that. Now, most people maybe do that. I don't know, but I think that's a super good way when you're learning a solo to listen to that music and play it without the music. So even if it's like a level 1 solo, see if you can find the piano part on YouTube or somewhere, and you can figure out how to play that solo without looking at the music. Not necessarily even memorized, but per se. I mean, my memory is terrible now. I'm an old man. So it was much better when I was a kid. I could memorize stuff really easily, but now definitely not as much. But that's a good way to learn a solo, I think, is to do more listening than even playing it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Before I cut you off and we answer that question, you were going to say what you liked about the Brookner.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay, here it is. So this, well, besides what I already said about rotary tubas, which is their ease of use, this Miraphone tuba is made with very thin sheet brass. So it's quite light. This is lighter than that York-Brunner and lighter than most of my horns for a size. And this has a huge bore. I don't know what the bore is on here, but the bore increases through the whole horn. And I think, I want to say it's, you can look it up. It's something like 830 or it's in the 800s.
Yeah, I'm pulling
the
it
bore
up now.
size on this one. I'm gonna play a few notes and I'm kind of curious because I plugged in this mic over here and I want to see if I can play a few notes. I'm going to turn off my talkie mic and just play a couple of low notes on here through a different mic, and it might sound crappy, but it might sound semi okay. So we'll try it.
Let's see.
I'm not warmed up. I haven't played today. So how did that sound? I'm just kind of curious.
It sounded pretty good. It was a little low, but I cranked you up a little bit on my end, but
okay. But you didn't have any clipping, like
No.
bad distortion or anything?
No, nothing of that nature.
That's a hard thing to get over. We're playing the first suite in E flat. That's a good piece. I've played the first suite in E flat in bands at least once or twice.
Yeah, I can't
Probably
tell you how many
twice.
times that I've played that piece.
Several times. Von Williams concerto. So I mean, I've been out of sort of the music playing world other than my local community band here in Charlotte for 13, 14 years. I mean, when I was in LA before that, I would still play gigs and had friends with bands and would do things from time to time. But since I've been to Charlotte, like I haven't played any gigs per se or anything like that. So and even in any real groups or ensembles. Of course, now I'm stuck home in COVID. So I actually kind of had a talk with my family and we decided we were going to do something interesting today. My daughter's been wanting to learn the guitar, and I used to be a pretty decent guitar player, and I was a songwriter and I wrote and even sold some songs. But I developed a really terrible case of carpal tunnel, and it really got difficult for me to play guitar. But I used to love playing guitar, and I had carpal tunnel relief surgery about a year ago, and I'm really quite healed up now and can sort of noodle around on the guitar without terrible nerve pain. I had it in both hands. So I talked to my kids and I'm like, my guitar playing is terrible. I haven't played in forever. My calluses are just starting to come back because I've been noodling on it. But my kids both want to learn guitar. So I'm like, and I learned guitar totally by ear. It's kind of like I learned violin. I can play violin and guitar, but only by ear. Like I can just listen to what's going on and I'll figure some stuff out and play by ear. But I never learned how to play. I mean, I kind of know what notes I'm playing because I can hear the notes in those chords, but not really because I know the neck and all the intricate details of how to actually play guitar, which my guitar playing friends, because I've been in rock bands I've had my own rock band where I had an absolutely incredible guitar player. He just marveled at the fact that I didn't want to learn the neck and that I didn't want to learn certain theories behind what I was doing. And he thought my playing was really good, but he had trouble communicating with me guitar wise, which I understood as a trained musician in the brass instruments. I understood that I was negligent. So I've decided that we are going to, I got some guitar books. I didn't even have any beginning guitar books. And so I'm going to start learning beginning guitar from the very start with my kids, which is probably where I should have been when I first started messing around with guitar in my 20s. Long story short,
But that isn't that like doing it with your kids isn't that like the Suzuki method basically? Like
I think it
you
is.
learn at
I
the
think
same
it's similar to
time,
that.
like, and you're, I think especially with the Suzuki, it's a little bit younger than maybe your kids are, but it's like, if they see you doing it, they'll want to do it also.
Yeah, I kind of have a vision of trying to do something like that. And I talked to them today, and we'll see. They're not super disciplined. Kids today are much different. When I was a kid, I played a lot of sports, and I wanted to play my horn. And those were the things that I was into. There wasn't a whole lot to do. My kids, they're in school, even though it's virtual, there's so much going on in school. And then they want to be on their devices. They want to talk to their friends on their devices. It's to keep their attention for a long period of time. I think it's different now for kids today than it was 30 years ago, 40 years ago when I was a kid.
Sure.
The world's always changing, and you kind of have to adjust and adapt with your family according to that.
Yeah, just wanted to say a quick shout out to one of my former students who's on the chat right now, Eddie Gonzalez. Great tuba player. It was one of my students when I was teaching at North Texas as a teaching fellow.
Oh, cool. Well, hey, Eddie, shout out.
But yeah, so we've got through the Brookner. There are a couple. I feel like there are a couple more if my numbers are correct, but maybe I'm wrong.
I have the Eastman 632 double C tuba. That's the second Eastman to arrive in the United States, as far as I know. Matt Walters got the first one, and he tinkered with it, and he talked about it, and I talked to him, and he said, we are getting our first shipment. And I said, I want the first one. And he messed with it. So that was like the first one. It's a very popular tuba now.
Yeah.
I actually did a YouTube review of that one when I first got it. I had the initiative. I took the initiative to do it for that. Love that tuba. Just love it. It's so versatile. It has the kind of sound that kind of goes in between large American York style tuba and a smaller, more nimble, like Yamaha kind of tuba. I think it's sort of copied off of the King tubas. I think sort of an American tuba style. It's a small bore tuba with a big, flat, huge pancake bell.
Right. Yeah, I've liked that tuba a lot. That's also one of those tubas that's kind of been on my wish list, but never quite pulled the trigger because especially I've got two tubas and I love my two tubas. I've got a 6/4 C tuba and not a small F, but it leans that direction. And it's just like a horn like that would be better suited for most gigs. It's like when you play in like a small ensemble or something, like a little brass group, and like even brass quintet sort of stuff would be better than either of my tubas. Although my tubas are great for certain things, but especially with tubas, I tell people all the time, there's not a perfect tuba. There's a perfect tuba for a specific task. Not even a full ensemble sometimes. You look at like brass quintet, and some of it would be great on C or B flat. Some of it's you would really like to have an F. There's just so many variables with all of that sort of stuff.
But there are some perfect. It's kind of funny you said there's a lot of perfect tuba, and the one thing that popped into my head was Oystein Bodsvik. Okay, so there is a perfect tubist who only plays on one tuba for everything, who's made a whole career based on his own solo skills and his marketing prowess and I mean just his wonderful musicianship and his good sense of humor. And he's cool, like in a way, like if there is a perfect tuba, if you're that great a tubist, you can make the perfect tuba because of who you are.
Sure.
A lot of like Howard Johnson played on that B flat tuba.
Yeah, top action.
There's a tuba, the top action B flat, and that for him, and that was the perfect tuba for him. And he just died recently. What a great example of tuba playing and innovation. Like somebody who's like I'm just a musician and I happen to play tuba.
Sometimes he played other things
whatever
too.
Else.
Yeah.
And he played all kinds of other things. Yeah, he did. I was in a group that I had so much fun with called the World jazz ensemble. And there were some really cool cats in that group, like Ayrton Moreira, who's a percussionist for Miles Davis, and some other really great musicians in that group. And that was so fun because I played tuba in it, and there was, as far as brass, there was one other guy who played trumpet, but I played other instruments. So I also played a little bit of guitar and other things when I wasn't playing tuba, and there was singing and different things in it. And the other guy who played trumpet was a great fiddle player. So like the versatility, if you can be a versatile instrumentalist, you know, you can work it into to becoming a career like a guy like Howard Johnson did in New York City, because he played all kinds of really cool stuff and cool gigs and got all kinds of neat studio gigs and that sort of thing. And he never was like known for being, I guess, a legit player.
Right. Yeah, we got a question about preference of rotor and piston valves, because someone's saving up for a tuba and they're thinking about going back to piston. So I like to think about, you know, both piston and rotor valves. They have their merit. Not one isn't better than the other. They're definitely different. And I get I think I get typecast as being someone who only likes rotor valves because both of my tubas happen to be rotor valves. And there are some things that I really like about rotor valves. I like the reliability aspect. You know, I've had rotor valves that have, you know, frustrated me in a performance before, but most of that is more about, you know, more piston tubas have kind of disappointed me with that. But both of them are good, and a lot of professionals, you know, play both of them, especially like in the orchestral world. I would say most C tubas are piston, but they're both good. It's kind of personal preference. There's so many things about equipment like that may work out for you, may not work out for you, and you kind of have to try it out for yourself, I think.
Yeah, you do. And it, you know, it also depends on how much you bang around with your horn. Rotors are a little more, if you have a soft case, they're a little more prone to be totally destroyed if your tuba kind of falls over the wrong way, where pistons maybe not. You know, it depends, because it always depends on the accident, and you hope you don't have one. But there's that. There's the emptying the water. You know, like I said, if you're playing in a band where you're playing all the time, it really is great and easy to be able to empty the water without having to pull slides and dump water. Orchestral players, you see them do it all the time, but they just sit and count notes. They've got all the time in the world to learn how to dump the water as quiet as possible. And the audience seems to always like it when you flip your tuba when everybody's being quiet and you don't make a sound anyway. They're they're watching the violins, but hey, they're looking at that huge tuba like flip around. if you have to dump water in the middle of a like Mahler concert or something like that.
Right.
You have enough rest.
There are definitely logistical concerns with both of them. And one of the things with rotors too that I find is most like students that I've had, like especially like my college students that I've had, almost every single one of them, we've had a lesson where it's like, you know, you have this rotor tuba. Do you actually know how to oil it? Let me see you oil this tuba. And almost every time it's like, yep, you don't actually know how to oil this. So I think that with rotors, you know, oiling them is maybe a little bit more complicated, and it's definitely easy enough to learn, but people don't do it correctly, or sometimes they think they don't have to do it at all. Which can be a problem too, for sure.
Well, rotors are easier on the hand. They're quicker. They articulate a little bit more crisply. So I think a rotary instrument has a little bit more pop coming off your armature than, say, a York style, or like even my Eastman over here, where the pistons have a little more of a depth of sound, like foghorn effect, than the rotors, which often have a more of a punchy, like straight to the back of the hull kind of feel to them. If I was just going to have one horn and I had to choose between all my tubas, just for sound versatility and everything, I would pick the Brookner tuba as my one main tuba.
Yeah. It's my former student Eddie said he didn't know how to oil rotors, so that's why his C and F are both piston. Which you still have one rotor on each of those, which I bet in a lesson, I can't remember, but we probably worked on how to oil those.
It's really pretty easy. You unscrew the back caps, put a drop of some heavier oil on there, put a drop through the front rotors, and you put heavier oil on all the parts and pieces and the springs that move. You do that, like, you probably don't even have to do it once a week or whatever, but you do it like once a week, and then you just, you blow valve oil through the horn. I'm kind of crazy about it, so I would do it after any performance or long rehearsal. I like to oil everything after I play, so that the longer it remains in the case or whatever, it went in there with a fresh coat of oil, not a bunch of water in it.
Right.
That's always the best.
And what a lot of people don't think about too is one reason to do that is because the oil is not just about lubricating, it's also about cleaning. And if you run that oil through your instrument right after you're done playing, especially, and if it's going to sit for a while potentially, that's a really helpful thing because it doesn't have, your lunch from earlier corroding it and just, destroying the insides of it. Not that you should just, eat your lunch and start playing, but, no matter, even if you brush your teeth right before you play, you're putting some corrosive materials into your instrument, and that oil kind of helps just flush it out a little bit. But yeah, the official, thing to do is oil it, before and after you play every single time. Not that most of us do that, but more oil is probably better than less oil.
Well, yeah, it's just like a car.
Right.
You have to have an oil change, and yeah, you want to keep it well lubricated, and the lubrication is what keeps your car clean, which is what keeps particulates from damaging the inside of your car, just like the inside of your tuba or trumpet or trombone or French horn or whatever you're doing. And even just a quick, if you have a rotary horn, even a piston horn, but a quick blow of oil through the lead pipe after you have extensive playing will extend the life of your lead pipe quite a bit.
Right.
Because the lead pipe is the first thing to get oxidized. It has the most moisture in it when you play it, because it's closest to your mouth, obviously.
Right. And someone's saying that they're too lazy to oil rotor valves, and that's definitely one of those things where, people complain so much about their school tubas being terrible, and it's kind of funny to me because it's like, yeah, you're playing on an $8,000 Miraphone. It's not a terrible tuba. It might have been treated poorly and no one ever oiled it, which, a lot of times a lot of students are just perpetuating that and continuing that on. But yeah, I mean, the instruments need oil. It's just like, I think the car analogy holds so true. It's like, you can drive a car and not change the oil for a pretty long time. And then at some point, you're going to need a new engine. And
Yeah.
It's going to be very expensive, and you basically totaled that car. And
the most important part, which is the lead pipe, is usually the first thing to go. Just like in a car, if you don't oil it, that's your engine block, and the lead pipe will send your horn home quicker than almost anything if there's a hole developing, which has happened to me. So I had to replace the lead pipe in my Miraphone 185 when I was in high school, because I did not properly care for it, even though I was probably better caring for it than most people my age would have been at that time.
yeah, I mean, if you don't know exactly how to do all of that, if no one tells you, it's hard to know. Someone said, can you ever put too much oil? I would say no, not really. You can waste oil, so to speak, but I don't really think in most situations you're gonna do damage by putting too much oil. I don't really see a scenario where that would happen. The only times that I could see something like that, sometimes if your horn gets super oily, you might it might be easier to get a bumper that falls out or something like that, especially when you're oiling the outside of a rotor valve. That's happened to me before, that I was maybe a little bit too liberal with how much oil I was putting on, and then that caused a bumper to pop out, but it wasn't the end of the world or anything. But you can't really, I would think about it as you can't oil it too often. Maybe, you could maybe drown it in oil, which would be wasteful, but
and could be kind of toxic and unpleasant.
Right.
If you have too much of it.
Right. So, there's a limit to it. Don't just think, okay, now I'll just use a gallon of oil every day. That's probably not the best strategy. But, for the most part, I would say 99.9% of people are not using enough oil. maybe there's a 0.1% somewhere of people who are using too much, but or I guess more like less frequently or not frequently enough. You know, those are the sort of things that I'm thinking of, not necessarily a quantity when you're doing it, but
I have more brass instruments than probably most people on earth, and it's sort of part of my hobby or my routine with my collection to go through them and to keep them in good long-term service, even if I don't play them. So I even have done that on my live streams, or even been on like Zoom calls with people in here in my studio where I didn't have anything to do with my hands. So I will grab an instrument and service it while I'm just talking on a stream or something. Um, I find it relaxing. I like to do it. I'm not often the kind of person who's in a hurry. So and everybody sort of has different personalities, but for me, I really do enjoy it. I find it to be therapeutic. So I do go through my horns pretty regularly and just sort of maintain them, whether I play them or not. And I use a special oil, different kinds of oils on the horns that I know I'm not going to immediately play, that I'm going to put in the case or put on a shelf. So if they're going to sit on the case or a shelf, I'll keep a thicker. The oil that I absolutely love is Marvel Mystery Oil. It's an oil you can get at any auto parts store, and it has a detergent in it. It will last for years and years and years on the valves of an instrument, and keep them from freezing up or getting dirty or getting corroded at all. It's meant to add to oil and gas to sort of help clean engines. But Alan Baer turned me on to that a gajillion years ago in the 80s, when he was probably making more money doing horn repair than playing the tuba. And he was such a great repairman. He had a whole repair shop in his garage, and kind of a fun guy. So he worked on my horns, and I knew him back in LA, and he had a shop in Long Beach out of his garage. And he showed me this whole thing about Marvel Mystery Oil and how to use it to clean and repair horns. And it was like his miracle oil. And I started using it back then and really like it. So I put that on my horns before I set them down or put them in the case for any kind of long-term storage, or if any horn is having problems due to any kind of dirt or buildup and I can't figure out what it is, I'll put that oil on the horn. I'll play the horn for several minutes or even half an hour or so, and the valves will kind of sludge up because this particular oil gets very thick with just a little bit of friction. So you play just for a little while, even something slow, the valves will start to kind of get really gooey and sticky and slow. But it's doing its magic. It's cleaning it out with that Marvel. And then I'll blow all that through the horn and put regular valve oil on it, and it'll just play like a dream, like it's almost brand new. Alan Baer taught me that trick, and I still do it to this day. And it's like that oil is probably not great for you. So I do my best not to breathe it in because it smells kind of terrible. And you have to be willing to deal with the side effects of literally putting a thing made for motors in your tuba, but it works well for me.
Yeah.
If you do this at home, kids, we got 12 listeners. I am not an expert on tuba oil, and I think it says on Marvel Mystery Oil that it's deadly. So if you decide to do that, remember that Tuba Dylan told you to use all the cautions on the bottle, and don't take my word.
Which
that
probably
it's
means just don't ever use it.
Probably don't ever use it, but it works great on your horns if you're crazy like me. If you want to be as wonderfully healthy as I am at 46, which I'm actually not, go ahead and use it. Or if you do want to be not so healthy like I am at 46, but have very fast valves on your tuba, go for it.
Yeah, so Eddie, my former student, he said he was joking about not knowing. He does know how to oil his rotor valves. But he says lately he's been leaning towards a heavier oil. What's our preference? I like to use as heavy of oil as I can get away without hating the action. I kind of think about it. I use the Monster oil stuff primarily these days, and I use, for my older instruments, I use the heaviest oil that they make, and then as it gets newer, tighter tolerances and hasn't been quite as worn down, I go with the lighter version, which, I have, my oldest instruments. I've got a couple from 1972, two specifically from 1972. And then like my C tube is from 1999. And then I've got a handful of, relatively new instruments, 2000 something. And pretty much with all of those that are like the Neptune being 99 and later, that's kind of the point where I start using the lighter stuff. So Eddie, for your horns that are all fairly new, I'd probably stick more on the lighter side, but if the action doesn't bother you of the heavier oil, it's great because it'll last longer. So heavier oil is great as long as it's not a problem.
Yeah, for new horns, I like this one.
Ultra
this
Pure.
Marvel. What is it? Yeah, Ultra Pure. This is the sort of medium one. They have a fast one, like a thinner one, and then they have different ones that you can put on your linkage. I don't know if anyone can see that, but you can put different ones on your linkages. There's a blue and a red, so this is the thickest. The red's the thickest, and there's a blue that's sort of a medium thick. This is for your valves, and there's even a lighter one. I used to for several years, from about the time I was maybe 18 or 19 when I was a freshman in college, till well after I moved here to Charlotte. So for I don't know 25, 30 years, I made my own valve oils.
Yeah,
so
I've had to do that too.
I made it with a combination of lamp oil, Marvel Mystery Oil, which I did some combination mixing with lamp oil, and used also a thing called, this is probably the most toxic thing I ever used as a valve oil, but I used to use it, Z-Max, which is a stuff for, it's kind of a super oil additive for race cars, but for any kind of car, that at the molecular level, it soaks into your metal and kind of lubricates it from the inside. The molecules are so small that it soaks into the pistons. Sounds
toxic.
Oh, it's terribly toxic. Like, you're supposed to put it in your car, not in something you play on. But I used to use that, and I would mix it, and I'm not telling anyone to do that. I'm actually telling you not to. That's why I use Ultra Pure now. I throughout my life, as I've been arrested at Disneyland, and also, had lung problems due to oil. Not really, but I've switched to better things now. I use the Ultra Pure now, but I still remember how to make my incredible formula. I used to tell my family, I used to say, this tuba business, and music business, it's cutthroat. It's awful. I want to find a way to make a living selling valve oil. I want to sell my valve oil. Now, my mother, she was an attorney, and she's just like, you cannot sell she knew what I did with my valve oil. She knew it was like toxic, right? I said, well, it works great, and she goes, yeah, but as soon as someone gets killed from it, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, probably not ideal. Well, I think that might be a good place to sort of end it here. We've been going on for about 90 minutes,
Yeah.
90 plus minutes now, but I want to thank.
Wow.
I want to.
Yeah.
It's been a bit. But yeah, I want to thank you, Dylan, for Tuba Dylan, for being on here, and hope that everybody got something out of this stream. We had more than we've had at any of these Wednesday night live streams. So,
well, thanks for having me on, Zach.
Yeah,
I really
definitely.
I like your videos. I think you're an excellent player. I think the first time I saw one of your videos might have been it was one of the ones where you were playing trombone and you had the notes below you. And I was super impressed at how you did that. I'm sure you've said in one of your videos how you did that. I think you told me once, but how did you do that? If you can explain that in 5 sentences.
I use After Effects, which is a motion graphics part. It's like in the Adobe suite. So it's actually how, when I switch over to having that graphic, you'll see it on the actual thing where your name pops up and that animates. That's the same thing the same application.
Oh, yeah.
So
okay.
It's basically.
No, I know After Effects well. I work with editors who are using After Effects all the time.
Yeah, I'm definitely not like an advanced After Effects user. Every time I use After Effects, I'm also using Google and YouTube to tell me what to do. But I've been able to figure out a few different things, and I've got my way of doing things. The scrolling music, you know, it works better for some things. When it gets really fast, it doesn't work quite as well. I think I've made it work a little bit better by switching to 60 frames per second lately. Because it's just a little bit smoother looking, even though I'm still shooting in 30p because I don't like the way it looks in 60p. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. Sometimes I don't think it looks as good on the fast things specifically, but you know, it's my shtick now, so I have to stick with it.
Well, hey Zach, thanks for having me. To your viewers, keep doing it, keep playing the tuba, keep enjoying YouTube. I think it's a really cool community. I'm excited I got to go on with you. We could do our nerdy tuba talk, and there's actually 10 people interested in hearing it, and
Right.
people will watch it later. And I think that's really neat that we can do that. And I really like you, so I wish you like all the absolute best out there in Dallas. And if you're in Dallas and you need a tuba or trombone player, look this guy up, or just keep watching his videos. They're really interesting, and it's great that he goes on all the time, like once a week at the same time. I have a YouTube channel. I go on randomly in the middle of the night and make a fool of myself. So if you want to subscribe to my channel, you can do that. And once in a blue moon, I'll do a video of a tuba where I'll get really cool, weird, like video of it with my cool cameras. So
yeah, the man of many cameras. Yeah,
I have a lot of cameras.
If all, I assume most of you are already aware of Tuba Dylan's channel, but if not, Tuba Dylan on all platforms, you know. Yeah, definitely go check out those videos, and thank you for being here. It's been a blast. It's definitely a lot more enjoyable to do this with another person instead of just being here alone and just reading the comments as they come in and, you know, playing etudes or whatever. So it's been a lot of fun.
Hey.
I think we should do this again sometime.
I'd be happy to if you want to do it in a month or whatever. Just let me know, and we'll try it again. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. Well, we'll let all 11 people watching right now. We'll let them all go, and hopefully more people will watch it later. But yeah, thanks for being on the stream, everybody, and all the great comments and some of the maybe less great comments too. But yeah, so hope that everybody has a good evening, and we'll call it there. All right.